like a song.
Just a matter of time, I suppose.
So this is Louis, and I decided that I should record something before I go out for a nice hot walk or jog. I'll probably start to jog, and being that it's like, what is it, like 88? I don't know how it is right. It's over 80, and it's getting closer to 90 out. So I want to go for a jog, but it'll probably be so hot that at some point I'll have to stop and walk. But I wanted to record something. Trump sent out this tweet earlier today about Buffalo and this professional activist in Buffalo. And here's how I know I'm not crazy. Since I've gotten laid off, I have spent a disproportionate amount of time with my parents. I think they do it out of pity because they expect me to have far less money, and I am making less money, even with the Trump bucks, than I was working. But they have me over for dinner, usually a few times a week, and we usually talk about what's going on in the news. They usually have the news on. They have, in many ways, the stereotypical sort of mainstream establishment Democrat response to most issues. And I can usually tell that if we align on something, there is something to that issue that crosses political boundaries because there is enough common sense among us to identify something that's true versus something that's more political and we disagree. As it relates to this old dude in Buffalo, this professional activist who was shoved down, or who fell down, depending on your interpretation of the video, we came to the consensus on the first day that it was news that he fell. He may have been pushed back by the police, and maybe in that instance the police, instead of pushing him in the fashion that they did, could have pulled him in and arrested him, but they were ordered to push back the protesters. They were ordering those protesters back, and a bunch of them did move back, but this professional activist moved forward, and he went up to and started fucking with police. What exactly he was doing, I don't know, but it was weird. If you watch the video, which I'll see if I can find it for you to show it to you, it was weird. His hand movements were weird, his actions were weird, his behavior was weird, and the cops, just in the standard unthinking fashion, shoved him back. He, being like 6'9" or some shit, and old, stumbled and then fell to the ground. The police, by all accounts, did not shove him hard. They simply pushed him with one hand. And him being tall, old, and having the grace of a fucking dumpster rolling down a flight of stairs, fell. Now the question is, whose fault is it that he fell? And my answer is his own, because when he was ordered to move back, instead he moved forward and expected some kind of deferential treatment or was up to something. And so on the second day, when the news was talking about it and they named him as a professional activist, which I accused him of on the first day, both my parents said, you know what, Louis, you're right. This guy instigated this. This guy was looking for some kind of reaction. This guy was up to something. Because after being ordered to move back, he moved forward, started doing some weird shit, and got shoved. So the question is, well, was it just on the street? Some random cop came up to him and shoved him? No. It was during a protest, and the police were ordered to move the protesters back. This guy instead moved way forward into the police line. The guy was looking for an altercation. The guy got it. It became a national news story. This professional activist drew that action out of the police. He was looking to instigate something. He is an agitator. And he got what he wanted out of that interaction. The police made the mistake of pushing him back rather than doing what they should have done, which is pull him forward and arrest him. That is what they should have done. But instead, the police chose to make the wrong move, and 2 cops went down for it. They were prosecuted for it. So they're done. They're fucked. They're now on indefinite unpaid leave and are in the midst of being prosecuted or have successfully been pleaded out to something. So they're done. They're fucked for that one action. They're done. In terms of the resignations from that same emergency response team, all those resignations that happened, it's unclear exactly what's become of those officers. You have to be assigned to certain duties. And so if you resign from certain duties, well, then what happens to you? I don't know. And it hasn't really been explained. But they're still on the Buffalo PD as far as I can tell. But the reason they resigned is because legally they were hung out to dry. So City Hall ordered them to disperse the protesters as part of being on this team. Then when this happened, when these 2 cops were prosecuted for lightly pushing an old man, City Hall hung those 2 officers out to dry and wouldn't defend them legally. So that's why all the resignations happened. City Hall gave the order and then left all those officers out there to dry when they acted upon their orders, or the orders of City Hall. This is a complicated issue where you have a police force that is containing a powder keg of a shithole city that is run top to bottom by Democrats, and overwhelmingly black Democrats. This is one of those cities where if you're white, you're not getting elected. And the police in the city are not only impossibly diverse, but very laid back compared to most police that I've had interactions with. If you've listened to me for a long time, you've heard me talk about the Buffalo Police Department, in that they are strangely passive, casual, laid back compared to any other police in the area. I've had interactions with every police department, every sheriff's department in this, all of Western New York, practically. I've had dealings with every police force, an officer on at least one, sheriff's, local PD, whatever, throughout the last 4 years of when I was a private investigator. It was several times a week that I was dealing with the police. And there are better departments, there are more professional departments, there are more irritating departments, and sort of like hard-ass departments, and hard-ass sheriffs, and all the rest of it. I have had to deal with good cops and irritating cops, loud cops and casual cops. I have had far more interaction with police in my area than any of the people commenting on this story. I resent the implication that the Buffalo PD is some kind of bad police force when, as I say, it's run top to bottom by Democrats, black Democrats. It is an impossibly diverse police force. And yet, these people that are not from this area feel free to condemn the entire goddamn force for the actions of a protester. He is the one that instigated this use of force. He approached them after being lawfully ordered to move back. The police were given their marching orders. Move the protesters back. So they acted on that. They gave orders. Move back. He moved forward. He was given a lawful order to move back. The police line was established and was moving forward to push the protesters back. Most of the protesters obeyed the order. He didn't. Ethan Klein, especially, is the biggest fucking hypocrite out of anyone. And, I've already made a video on that, so you already know. Nothing has changed. If I showed up to Ethan and Hila's multi-million-dollar mansion, wherever the fuck it is, I believe in California. If I showed up to their gigantic multi-million-dollar mansion and just rang the doorbell, knocked on the front door, I was like, hey, it's Louis Le Vau. I'm here to talk to you, Ethan. Let's have a sit down. Would Ethan, A, open the door and say, hey, Louis, let's have a chat. Come on in. You want a drink? Want something to eat? Let's go out in my backyard. Let's have a conversation. Something like that. Or would he panic, lock himself in a closet, and call the cops, crying his eyes out, desperately pleading for help? Which do you think is more likely to happen with Ethan? Well, we already know. There's been times in the past where Ethan has had to deal with the police. And he is dependent on the police because he is a gigantic fucking millionaire pussy. He is not a confrontational person. He is not a physically aggressive person. He is not some alpha male Chad who's going to take on his opponents. He's a fucking faggot pussy who's going to hide behind the skirts of his wife and of any police officers that are called to his home to defend him and his property. This is one of the things that I can't stand about these sides of the situation, because it is my belief, philosophically, not even in terms of practically or, in terms of the role of the citizen and in that of the state and blah, 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 politics. It's just philosophically, I am the keeper of my domain. This is my property. And so if you show up onto my property, I'm going to ask you to leave. And if you say no, well, then we have to escalate the situation. The overwhelming thing here is who's escalating. Not just in this hypothetical, but overall. People talk about the Buffalo PD like Eric Kane's dumping on the BPD on Twitter. I'm like, bro, should I show you the video of the guy trying to firebomb City Hall with accelerants in a cardboard box like a fucking retard? This guy is such a fucking ghetto-ass terrorist, he can't even create a bomb. He has to try to make a bomb out of a cardboard box and light City Hall on fire. And then after that, you had cops run over in the street. I believe it was 3 officers, 2 of which were severely injured because of some fucking cocksucker and some piece of shit SUV. City Hall has been, accelerating the tactics and being more aggressive after these events. It didn't just come out of the fucking ether because you don't know. You're not from here. You don't know what the BPD is like on a day-to-day basis. You don't know how relaxed and casual they are about fucking everything. The reason why they're being aggressive is because they've been ordered to be aggressive by City Hall. And it hasn't been for no reason at all. It's been because of the increasingly aggressive tactics of the so-called peaceful protesters. If you had any semblance of any idea of what is going on in this area, then you might be able to understand. But no, you're like Ethan Klein, Eric. Police bad. You're not from this area. You don't know any of these cops. You've never met any of these cops. You don't know what they're like. You just assume they're fucking bad. I can't stand the fact that I have to defend the Buffalo PD when I'm not from Buffalo. I don't live in Erie County. The only attachment that I have to Buffalo is that it's 10-15 minutes away from me. But the fact is, I know the cops there, and I know the citizens there, because I spent the last 4 years working in Buffalo multiple days a week, on the street, interviewing people, recording people who are engaged in insurance fraud. I'm on the street. I'm going into the convenience stores. I'm going into the corner stores. I'm dealing with the people there. I was on a day-to-day basis for 4 fucking years. And I can tell you that in that time period, my attitude towards the BPD has been positive. It has been raised. I like the BPD. And I dislike the citizens there. I don't like the people that I generally met in Buffalo. Now, there were decent people who lived there, and I have met them, but there's a lot of fucking cock suckers that I'm glad don't live around me that live in fucking Buffalo. And that's who the BPD have to contend with every day, is all of those awful people that I'm glad don't live near me. There is a disproportionate amount of violence in Buffalo. There's a disproportionate amount of murders in Buffalo for this area. There is a disproportionate amount of crime, and I've met people who live in Buffalo that hate living in Buffalo, but are old and they don't want to move and they're going to die there. But they hate the city. They hate the area in which they live. They know it's dangerous. And I've had old people come out to me and tell me, hey, you might want to leave the area. This is a shitty area. There's drug dealers around here. There's gang members around here. You might want to just leave the area because you look nice and you don't really blend in here. You look too suburban. You might want to leave this area because it's a fucking shithole that the police, despite their best efforts, can't manage. I go out of my way to be generous towards the police, to give them the benefit of the doubt. Because even while some have an attitude problem, and I have definitely met those kind of officers that have an attitude problem, it doesn't mean they're not good police. Because you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know what kind of day they've had. And the people they interact with, such as it is with George Floyd, there's more and more video that keeps coming out showcasing the fact that this piece of shit was resisting arrest. And yet everyone's, painting murals of him, erecting statues of him, and praising him. And even on the right, you got the fucking governor of Texas on his knees, not that he can't do anything else but that, ready to fillet George Floyd's fucking corpse. Because he's such a great guy. Fuck all the officers. Fuck all the cops in the entire union. Fuck them all. Let's get find a rope, find a pole, and let's string them up. Fuck every police officer. But this piece of shit, violent junkie, he's the good guy in all this. He's the guy that I need to lose sleep, shed some tears over his fucking utterly pointless, insignificant life that he threw away. He's the guy I need to shed some tears for and lose some sleep over. I don't fucking think so. His death is a consequence of his own actions. He put himself in that position, and he was unable to control himself because he was high on a cocktail of fucking drugs, because he was a drug addict. And I know that there's conditions around that case that people are concerned with, all sorts of oddities and whatnot, but to me, a lot of that is beyond what should be the focus of what happened there. And what should be the focus for this entire situation of, the police. We need some reform of the police. They're already passing bullshit in New York State. Bullshit fucking, legislation. Fast-tracking it through the Assembly and the Senate straight to the governor's office because fucking Andrew Cuomo snapped his fingers, so everyone flew into action to make him look good, like he's doing something. When nothing is going to change, because no matter how much you cuff the police from policing the streets, no matter how much you limit and you appease these anarchists in changing police policy, it isn't going to change the fact that, like I said to fucking Chris Raygun, dude, if you have any sense of authenticity to what fucking bullshit you're putting on Twitter, let's you and I'll say this to Ethan Klein or Eric Kane, let's you and I go down to Bailey Avenue in fucking Buffalo at 11 o'clock at night and walk the fucking streets and live stream it. You want to go fucking do that? You want to do it? Let's go. Because I've worked in Buffalo at fucking night. And it isn't nice. It isn't a pleasant place. You don't feel fucking safe, even while you're parked out front of a fucking police station. It's awful in many parts of Buffalo. And yeah, guess what? There is some racial animus in Buffalo from blacks towards whites. Surprise, surprise. I worked in plenty of neighborhoods where people's head was on a fucking swivel when I was around. It's like, whoa, who the fuck is this white guy? So let's you and I, any one of the people I've named, let's go down there and let's find the fuck out. Let's find out what kind of streets these cops are policing. How nice these residents are. How their hearts are exploding with altruism, purity, and kindness. Let's go fucking find out. Because I've worked in those fucking streets. I know them better than you will ever. Unless you're there yourself and you meet some of these fucking people. You're out in some of these areas at night. You see the cockroaches come scurrying out of the fucking gutter. You have your life threatened, which mine was threatened several times over 4 years. And it was almost always in fucking Buffalo. And in terms of the assailants, guess what their skin color was? In almost every single circumstance. Take a guess. Check the crime statistics, and even there, I think the crime stats are going to be a little bit too generous in terms of my direct experience. And do I hold any, do I harbor any prejudice against black people in general, even after my experiences in Buffalo? No! But I do know what it is like to live in that area and to work in that area. So to be a cop on this impossibly diverse police force, and to be white in a wholly controlled black Democrat city, it can't be a pleasant experience. It can't really be a rewarding experience. I'm sure there are some glimmers of hope in that dark, heart of darkness fucking style city, that setting. There are some glimmers of hope and beauty there, but it's otherwise very dark. Very hopeless. Because in terms of that city, not much has really changed in 60 years. The whites fled to the suburbs, moved out of the area, and the blacks have been there killing each other. Go back 60 years and it's the same fucking story. It is a city of incredible segregation, and it has been forever. And it's a city of violent and segregated minorities who hate each other. That's another big aspect of this. Isn't even just a white-black thing. It's the Hispanic thing, the Puerto Rican thing, the black thing, the Muslim thing, and all the other minorities that are there who fucking hate each other. Go interact with some of these people. Like that one video of the Hispanic guy with a chainsaw dropping some N-bombs. I've had some experiences like that in Buffalo myself as well. This big lie of the racial tapestry of the persons of color bullshit, it is so unbelievably untrue. And I know that by meeting some persons of color who don't have positive things to say about other groups. You could try to collectivize this as white on everybody else, but I don't think so. You're talking like somebody who lives in a 99% white, affluent neighborhood, who hasn't ever even met a fucking person that isn't your gardener, who's not white. So let's recap. I spent the last 4 years working in inner cities, multiple days a week, not just even in Buffalo, but in Rochester as well. I've had countless interactions with police over those 4 years. Countless interactions, multiple times a week. My alma mater is the most racially diverse campus in Buffalo. It's one of the most multiracial, and it's not a fucking affluent school either. It's a poor state school, or a poorer state school. I don't know if any of them are really poor at this point. The government just generally, state or federal, has a blank check attitude towards the university, so I don't know if any are really poor at this point. But it's not UB. It's not Canisius. It's not an affluent private school, religious school, any of this shit. I went to a state college where half the people on that campus were fucking black. That's the campus I went to. That's my alma mater. In terms of this area, I've lived here my entire life. I know Niagara Falls. I know the more affluent white suburbs of, artsy-fartsy hipster land of Lewiston. I know Buffalo. I know Amherst. I know Williamsville. I know Hamburg. I know the northern tier. I know the southern tier. I know this entire portion of New York because I've been all around it for the past 4 years, and I've lived here my entire life. And I'm here to tell you. So this is how I'm going to close this. Ready? In this area, there are no systematic systems of structural institutional racism, which is a Devin Tracy reference, who's one of the very few people that's also right on this. Countless people are wrong. My skipper, my boss, as his capo, Sargon of Akkad, the big brain man that he is, the man that is an elite, highly educated man, well-read man, got fucking dunked on by John Boyega. Sargon was like, no, Louis, hold on, let me tell you what John Boyega thinks. And then John Boyega was like, boom, burn down the whole country. Fuck you, Sargon. Boom! He got dunked on. So even he's wrong. Every one of you are wrong. It's just, honestly, me and Devin Tracy and Charlie Kirk.
Blacks commit 75% of all the crime in New York City. So actually, there's an under-policing problem in New York City. that blacks actually are not being arrested at the same rates of crime that they commit in New York City. And if you add Hispanic to black shootings in New York City, you account for nearly 100% of all the drive-bys in New York City. This is true for most every major city in America.
We're right. All you people are wrong. All you people are, systematic systems of structural institutional racism and policing. Ooh, you're all wrong. A very, very short list of fucking me, Devin Tracy, and TPUSA. We're right. And all of you are fucking wrong. Fuck your assumptions. You can dismiss me as having anecdotal experiences. That's fine. You have no experiences at all. You're just making assumptions based on your own fucking ignorance. I cannot stand it. And if I have to stand here and defend a police department in another county, in another city, that is run top to bottom by fucking black Democrats, I'll do it. I will do it because I have spent the last 4 fucking years interacting with them. And they're not racist. They're not overwhelmingly white. They're not run by white Republicans. They're not bigoted. They're not overly aggressive. They're extremely passive. They're extremely casual. They're extremely good-natured. They're extremely generous in their behavior. Stop bad-mouthing these cops. When you haven't interacted with them, not only have you probably never interacted with a Buffalo cop, you've never interacted with someone from fucking Buffalo or Western New York. So fuck off. Take you and your bigoted bullshit opinions out of here. And keep your cameras out of here too. And keep your activists where the fuck ever they are. Stay out of Western New York. You don't care about the Rust Belt in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, or here in New York. You don't care about us, but when it suits your political narrative, then you show up. You abandon us, you abandon these areas for 50 fucking years, but then you show up to stir racial hatred. Fuck off. I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening.